Welcome, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Defy Limits podcast. The following conversation is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It is not legal, tax, or financial advice. Please do your own research, consult with qualified professionals, and use discernment when exploring complex topics like tax law or government policy. In saying that, today's conversation dives into one woman's bold challenge to the IRS. She has spent years uncovering what she believes are inconsistencies in how tax law is applied, especially around how income is defined and taxed, and how the use of language causes confusion. So, my guest today is Dawn French, and after graduating high school, Dawn served almost 6 years in the US Army as a diesel mechanic. She then attained a Bachelor of Science in Actuarial Mathematics from the University of Texas and worked almost 2 decades as an actuarial consultant in the financial services industry in Dallas. Forced to retire early due to a devastating chronic illness, she then decided the best use of her limited energy was exposing the fraud and criminal conduct of some of our public servants. So welcome, Dawn.
Thanks, Alanna. I am super stoked to be here today. This is a fun topic for me. And I get that most people just have so much confusion and fear regarding this particular agency that I am just going to make light of this entire thing because that's how I feel about it. So I am glad that you're with me so that you can see what I'm going through, what it looks like from your perspective and the perspective of your audience. And hopefully I can at least contribute something in the way of reducing some of that fear and some of that confusion by getting down to the very foundational concepts and definitions of words.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is really fundamental here.
Yes. Yeah. It's intimidation, fear, perfect way of describing it. Use of language. I'm a stickler about language, and I'm always, I do consider myself a communication expert. That being said, I'm learning about language all the time. Even more recently in terms of private lawful language versus public legalese. But yes, I'm my intention for this, as I've been on this journey too, to educate myself, is to educate the audience and enlighten them in some ways while doing, making decisions and doing what's best for them. Where I want to start with you first, just briefly, is because this led up to you actually going on this path, is the chronic illness that you experienced. So say something about that.
So I had I kind of always suffered from some health problems, but ultimately they never really slowed me down until sort of the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. I was eventually diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, which is not really a diagnosis as much as it is just a blatant description of what you're feeling. There's no particular cause to it or um, way to recover from it. There's nothing really. Then I've had loads of medical professionals tell me there's nothing we can do. We don't know what causes it. We don't know how to fix it. Um, forced to retire. Forced to retire. I could not keep up. And it wasn't just physically, it was mentally. In the financial services, my main tool was my laptop and the spreadsheets and calculations, and I just noticed everything slowed down to a crawl. And in a consultant role, you are billable, your time is chargeable to some other party, and if you take too long to do something, then that all has to be written off and it starts to look very bad. And I didn't have any other choice but to just leave the environment entirely. So, however, I then had all kinds of free time, not much energy to do much with it. but for some reason, this topic that had always kind of had a hold on me
Yeah.
popped back up and
Yeah.
became my focus.
You mentioned that this was something that you had been thinking about for 20 years. That's not something I would think about for 20 years. I don't think most people would. In fact, most people don't like to think about taxes longer than they need to. So, or the IRS and finances in that way. So, yeah. So, what was that kind of pivotal moment, aha, that made you want to that set you down on this path of discovery?
So it's hard to place it in time exactly. Probably when I was in college at UT after I had gotten out of the military. I had just picked up somewhere this whole concept of these two mutually exclusive, distinct categories of taxation that are enshrined in the Constitution, and how the income tax doesn't in popular lingo fit to either one of these categories, and that there was something wrong fundamentally with the income tax in particular. And that stuck with me for a really long time, and I didn't have the awareness or the experience to really understand what that meant or what the implications were. At some point early in my chronic illness, I came across again something else just in random reading. And the comment was, most Americans don't actually owe any income tax because they don't actually have any income. That's a pretty bold statement considering we're all taught everything that comes in is income.
Yes. Yeah. And just for the audience sake, Dawn sent me quite a few documents, which I've read most of them, and the most important one. And in this journey of learning more about language, in that realm of income, the thing that stood out to me, that when you and I talked before, also were two terms. One is capitations, and
Mhm.
how that relates to direct tax, and then non-direct, which has to do with excises, duties, and imposts, language that I'm not familiar with, and I'll bet most people are not either.
Right.
So I would imagine that it's like when you read something or when you see something, our brain or our focus starts to hone in. And I'm imagining that this is where you were like, okay, this is where I want to do a deeper dive on this.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us about that.
So the deeper dive would be first having the awareness, right? Because a lot of problems that I mean, me and others like myself, educated in the public school system here in the United States, we're given this flowery mythology about our founding and founding documents. And we're all assured that all of these public servants are working diligently to protect our rights. And so we're given this false sense of security, that everything is fine, we're being taken care of, everything's working as it should. And then you start to see glitches in the matrix. And where I see glitches in the matrix is not where everyone else sees them, because we're all wired differently. We
Yes,
all
we all
have
have our unique gifts and focus. I'm seeing glitches in the matrix now that I was not seeing before. So
that's right.
continue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that all depends on your experience, your natural talents, your skills, where you come from, where you've been, your whole environment. And you'll see it and you'll go, nope, something's wrong here. So that's the spark that really forced me to pay close attention, is just something implicit in how my view of the matrix glitched. And so it all boiled down ultimately, after years of digging in, to the fundamental definitions of these words.
Yeah.
And so capitations is one of these words. Now it has fallen from use out of our regular everyday language.
Okay, so
Okay.
so are you suggesting that this was something that people used to use all the time?
I see, I can't know if average individuals were using this word, but it was thrown around. It was thrown around in all the circles of the individuals who were, writing on these topics in the 1700s and 1800s and presumably early 1900s. So the thing is that the document, the Constitution, that puts the word capitations and other direct taxes in that document, those people understood it to mean something specific. They understood the definition of that word. We have lost that definition. We have replaced in our common language the specificity of the distinctions between those two categories of taxes enshrined in the Constitution, direct and all other, or not direct, or indirect, or excise duties and imposts. So there's sort of a catch-all category. So if we understand what precisely the definition of capitations and other direct taxes the framers of the Constitution intended at the time that they enshrined them, we automatically then understand how the mutually exclusive other category is comprised, right? so so when we understand what capitations means, we understand that because income taxes are not in that category, they cannot be the same as this capitations thing.
So with that, what was that first notice that you sent to the IRS? Like, what were you asking for? What were you communicating to them?
So the communication is a really big topic because once you kind of understand what is a capitation, so what cannot be an income tax because they are in opposite categories, then you go, oh, income tax. A tax on everything that comes in, everything, a tax on your assets, a tax on your revenue, what comes in, what you already have, indiscriminate, just you're taxed, you're handed a bill, a percentage of something, that is by definition a direct tax. You don't have to do anything special, do anything different. You just show up, you get a bill. Okay? So when you understand that and you go, okay, income taxes are not that. And there's a lot of confusion on the mythology. So if you're if you're in the business of confusing people's language, you have to be very thorough in how much of the language you confuse so that people can't get a foothold on solid foundation in order to understand. So when we look at how this interaction between me and the IRS got started, it starts the same way all interactions with the IRS get started. And that's with what's called an information return. So either you or a third party reports to this entity, to the United States, and says, oh, excuse me, this person over here has income. Here's some of it, or we didn't give you some of it, but we're telling you that it, was transferred.
Yep.
And that's how the IRS is made aware that some income has been generated, some activity, some taxable activity has occurred, and they are alerted to it. Now, because we have been um, what's the word? Confused, miseducated, however you want to color what's happened here. We have used in our common language that income is everything that comes in.
Right. Yes.
By definition, it cannot possibly be, but that is how our language has evolved such that we never ask questions because, well, everything that comes in is income, obviously. Not true, but that's how it starts. So then what we do is we agree, we consent. We
It's
say,
consent.
it is
Yes. Yeah.
consent. That is
Yeah.
the basis of this is you consent. You say, oh, oh, well, this third party must know more than me that this is income, or I'm confused such that I report myself as having income.
Well, and one of the biggest things that I've also learned over this past year is that silence is
Is
consent.
consent. That's right.
If you don't say anything, right? It's like it feels like you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. Although in the case like this,
It's not true.
when people might say, why bother doing this? Uh, because silence is
Is
consent.
consent. That's right. So if you are the one reporting you have income, then maybe dig in a little bit on what exactly income is, because it's not everything that comes in. It's a very specific subset. It has boundaries. It has scope. Scope. So if you want to understand whether or not you are actually in receipt of income, then you'll have to understand precisely what that word means. And you will honestly, forthrightly either declare it as income, or you will honestly and forthrightly say, no, no, this is not income. This is my property, and I don't actually owe any tax on it. However, if a third party is involved, it gets a little more complicated, because that third party is as confused and fearful as you are by this agency.
Yeah.
And they will simply, on assumption, report everything
Yep.
as income. They
Well,
think,
I'm imagining because maybe that's what they've been taught they're
yes,
supposed to do.
yes.
Yeah.
And so
So,
without ever questioning these fundamental definitions,
yeah.
that's the assumption nearly everyone is operating on.
Oh God. Okay. This, this, we could probably talk about this for. I mean, you and I
Yes.
talked for a long time before, and so for the sake of time, because there's other things I want to get to, but thank you for all of that, and I hope that clarifies some things. And it has for me, because again, I'm just learning about language. So you said that in this journey of the back and forth, that the IRS, in sending you statements as their communication, that they've ignored the experience that you're having is that they've ignored your argument. And so there's got to be something in you that's like this internal conviction to keep going. Like, what makes you not want to give up on this?
Oh, I don't know, call it a sense of justice. Like we're born with that. We know when injustice is occurring. The difference is do you say anything, do you do anything, or you just try to get away from it as much as possible? And unfortunately, I'm sort of the combative, confrontational type of person. Hence, military service. I used to train martial arts.
Well, that's something I want to bring that up. We didn't talk about this before, but this is what I find interesting is that you were a servant yourself
Yes,
in the military.
yes, yes.
And, one might find this interesting that you were in the military and yet you're taking this stance too.
Yeah. 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 The difference being, of course, the decades of time has elapsed. I
Yep.
joined right out of high school. I was 17. My parents had to release their release
Okay.
me. Yeah. And my
Because you're
parents
under
had to
18.
sign
Yeah.
so that I could enlist early. And so, and I have, military members in a lot of my family, family history. A lot of people in my family just like, we'll just serve, do some time, whatever, in and then out. My husband was a full retiree. He was in the army for his full 20 years and retired. So
That
there's
you
that
meet
element
there?
of service there. I met him there. Yeah, we met there.
I was curious about that. Yeah.
So that element of service, that kind of like, oh, it just like seemed natural for me to want to do something for the benefit of others. And so that sort of ingrained in kind of that personality as well. And then the combativeness, right? So having that, desire to stand up for what's right. Again, that's probably just something that I just kind of wanted to emulate at some point. Like if I've seen a good example of people standing up for the right thing, that filled me with, energy and joy, and felt like something that was what I'm here for. I mean, we're all trying to figure out what we're here for and what
Yeah,
our
what's
role
our
is.
purpose,
It's our
right? Like, what is
purpose.
our purpose here on the planet? What are we here to do in our lifetime? And I see this a lot in the work that I do as a coach, especially because I work with mostly older, like senior leaders in corporations and business owners that have been in business for 10 or plus years. So they tend to be 40 or older. And when we get in this later stage of life, yes, how we connect with our values and our purpose is very different. So the other thing I want to bring up is through this journey, because they've been ignoring the experience that you're having is that they're ignoring your arguments, that one might perceive this as it looks like you're in essence, in the realm of like winning and losing,
Yeah, yeah.
it might look like you're losing.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, what, what's in that for you?
um, it's, I have a different perspective. So if you just look at the number of times I've been fined, or we, because we're filing jointly, the number of times we've been fined, the amounts of the fines, the the dollar amounts, and I guess working in financial services, dealing with really large
That's another,
pension
yes,
plans,
yes.
like you're just desensitized to all of these really big numbers. And I just decided, like pretty early in this process, that I was just going to let go of all emotional charge with respect to the dollar amounts. So
Mhm.
obviously, I'm invested. It's my property or our property. We deserve it. It's not theirs. They have made no valid claim for it. They simply have declared it to be theirs. and so and so it looks like that I am just a huge L, right? They are just giving it to me. And when you actually dig in and you scratch the surface, you go, oh, well, that's because they're repeatedly misstating what the truth is.
Or
They're
what you,
making,
or what
yeah,
you submitted to them. Yeah.
yeah. And so the thing is that now this is not a really great character trait to have, but I enjoy pointing out other people's errors. Awful as that sounds, like to have to have that directed to people who deserve it. It's a talent and a skill and a gift rather than something that I should be
Something
embarrassed
that's
about.
annoying for the rest of us.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. Horrible if pointed at good people. It's very
Yeah.
useful when pointed at people who are just behaving, unethically.
Got
so,
it. Um,
so pointing out
so
all of their discrepancies, all their contradictions, their errors in logic, that's what my filings are. Like, you can't just say two opposite things and have that make sense. So the fact that they're having to just ludicrously, hilariously contradict themselves repeatedly means clearly I'm winning.
I love it. I love it. And well, you know what? And if you weren't enjoying this in some way, you probably wouldn't keep going.
That's
So,
right. That's right.
uh, yeah. So a couple more quick things, because I wish we had a lot more time. And who knows, maybe at some point we'll have you back as you continue this journey. So, uh, in terms of empowering, is for people to empower themselves, whether it's in a situation similar to what you're going through with the same organization or just in other situations, what's something that you can point out that somebody can connect to within themselves to keep going in a situation like this that might feel futile or yeah.
Yeah. So stuck. I think the hardest part is sort of acknowledging this much bigger picture. this
Yes.
this entity that we call the United States, whether you think it's a corporation, a country, a government, or whatever description it is, right? It's an entity, and it clearly hires employees who are deliberately deceptive in furtherance of a gain. That's the definition of fraud for anyone who's paying attention. And so as an individual, and hopefully in solidarity with other individuals who want to stand in integrity, I'm not a perfect person. I constantly making mistakes. I do things wrong all the time. I, I still want to stand in as much integrity as I can muster and demand that from the employees I'm engaged with. And
Yeah.
so I just want to maybe model a, a behavior that I think we're all gonna have to come to terms with. We inhabit this situation with people who distinctly lack integrity and are not ashamed of it at all. Shockingly, just not ashamed. And so, as a person who wants to stand in integrity, I need to figure out how to establish a boundary between me and that behavior.
Yes. Yes. I'm going through something similar with the company 23andMe. I created an account years ago before I see what I see now.
Yes.
The glitches in the matrix. And they filed bankruptcy. They also went through a data breach. And so I not only have submitted their forms along with my own custom written affidavits, because I now understand that, or understand that when you fill out a form with boxes on it, you check boxes, you fill out those boxes, it's actually legal entanglement. And so I submitted their forms because that's what I needed to do. And then I just said, see attached, see attached, see attached, and wrote my own affidavits to correlate with those for both the data breach and the bankruptcy. And I spent over 20 hours writing a notice of claim with a friend of mine who's a contract specialist, and I'm submitting those to them as well. And people ask me, like, why are you spending so much time with this? Why does it matter? They have your data and your information anyway. Because to me, agreements, written or otherwise, are sacred. And there are things that they're doing that I did not consent to. I also did not consent to them selling, or, I get it. It's a company and it filed bankruptcy, but I did not consent to that. And they have a buyer now, and it's a medical research company. So anybody who didn't do anything or didn't even request that their DNA be destroyed or that their, data be deleted, even though I don't trust that because they've got replicatable servers. Right. So, I get where you're at because energetically, spiritually, emotionally, I just feel better, even though people have asked me, is it enforceable? And so I don't know. I just feel better knowing that I'm doing it versus not doing it.
Yeah. And I want these people on notice. They, and they, right? Everybody's like, oh, they. So I'm honing specifically in on particular employees of this entity, the ones that are being deceitful, because that puts a face and a name on it. So these people are participating in what I'm calling fraud, deception, in furtherance of a gain. And with respect to the overlap between your journey on trying to stand in integrity with people who are not, and mine, there's a lot of parallels there. And at some point, we have to assert that integrity is the only thing that allows our society to function. And for whatever dysfunction you see, I'm pretty sure the root of it is some sort of deception, some individual behaving deceptively that needs to be called out and corrected. And
Yes.
if the entity that we are supposed to appeal to help us do that is the entity employing these individuals, then you're right. The question everyone else asks is, well, what is the point if there is no higher power that we can appeal to make sure this person knows that we know that they're dealing in deception and we are not at all consenting to any of it. And I think that energetically is what helps us discharge that sense of injustice. Yeah, maybe that person continues to go on and lie, and then the benefit and gain still happens. But ultimately, I've set an example. If someone's behaving unethically how do I behave ethically in that situation while still asserting I have a right to my property and I have a right not to be defrauded?
Yes. Okay. So what final question, and then I'd also love for you to share some good books to read. And then I'm going to ask you to email those to me,
Okay.
and I can include the titles or what have you underneath the podcast episode. But what does ultimate victory look like to you? Like when will you know I feel complete with this mission, even though you might not get the outcome that you ideally want?
Yeah. So the outcome ideally would be for the people who are the individuals. It's not some mythical they, it's not the government. It's the individuals who are,
Yeah.
yeah, who are ultimately responsible for preventing me from recovering my property. Ultimately, I would like my property back. You don't need to apologize. I don't need to hear your excuses. Just give me back my property and we can go on our, go about our business. But that doesn't mean my job's really over, right? So I would just like to educate as many people as possible or are interested. This is kind of a niche topic. Not a lot of people are even interested. Great, no problem. But for those who have seen this glitch or have enough invested in pursuing this information, I just want to get as much of my experience out there as possible so that you can see but learn from my mistakes in trying to assert my claim for my property. I'm trying to assert that this is not yours, and lying about it doesn't help.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you can if you're interested, you want to learn about my journey, I'm posting that on my Substack. Or in the process, right? Limited energy means I can't devote all my time to presenting this information and deal with what's coming at me from the IRS at the same time. So I'm having to limit my interactions there. But ultimately, it could serve as just general information so that you understand where I'm getting my information from, how I'm thinking through this, how I'm trying to stand on this foundation and assert my rights. And maybe I'm doing it wrong. Great. That you can learn from as well.
Yeah. And are there book recommendations on your Substack too?
So most of the information I've gotten is already collected on a website called Lost Horizons. And then
Okay.
there's a book free at that website called Cracking the Code. And so there's a lot of great information there. You can read it. It's everything that I've referred to in my filings with respect to like court cases, primarily Supreme Court cases, so that you understand that when I'm arguing with IRS employees, they're arguing opposite what the Supreme Court has, decided. So there's the contradiction. Like they're not even all on the same page here. So that's how you can tell like something's not right, is just the rampant contradictions. But all of those sources, resources are all on this Lost Horizons website. And that book is a really good place to start. If you really want to know the details here, because it's kind of getting down into the weeds. But if you just want the surface level, income is not and cannot possibly be everything that comes in. And you're good.
Thanks, Tom. Well, gosh, yeah. So much to learn on this. And yes, it can feel like you're getting in the weeds and going down a rabbit hole. It just depends on what drives us, right? Or what's important to us. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time today and for sharing about this with my audience. And I want to say to the audience, once again, thanks for spending time with us today. As always, this episode is meant to invite thoughtful dialogue, not to provide legal or tax guidance. Again, I'm reminding you that official guidance on taxation can be found through government sources or licensed professionals, and we encourage respectful curiosity and critical thinking while staying within lawful, ethical, and informed practices. So thank you everyone for your time, for your listening, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks for watching. And if you got value from this episode, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and comments are always appreciated. And if you're done trying to figure it out on your own, I work with leaders and entrepreneurs who are ready to leap forward and go all in. Connect with me on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. See you next time.